I'm Tim. In this video, we're going to take a common foam, almost ready to fly model, in this case the E-flite Radian, and with heat shrink plastic covering, we will
and come up with a new model. Let's get to it.
A wide range of foam ready to fly models. The E-flite Radian is one. You can see a video up here where I did a test unboxing of it. This is a great little ready to fly model. It's 3 channels with a throttle, elevator, and rudder. It comes out of the box ready to go. You simply insert the wing into the center section, charge the battery and charger that come with the kit, bind it to your transmitter, and you go fly. This is what the Radian looks like in the box. The wing is there, the fuselage. You can see a single battery and a charger. You simply insert the wing, there's 2 screws that tie it down, and you're ready to bind it and fly. So what we're going to do is we're going to take off these press-on decals that are on the wingtips here and on the tail. With an X-acto knife, we'll just lift them off. They should come off pretty well from this EPP kind of slick foam. And then we're going to take iron-on plastic covering and iron it onto the foam, being careful to apply enough heat to adhere the plastic covering to the foam without damaging the foam in any way. This foam is tough enough. I think that will not be a problem, but we'll find out. One thing we have to be careful about is weight. The added covering does add some weight. We'll work our way around this. I might, for example, keep a kind of white paint scheme and use red covering, so we have the red covering color from the covering, the white from the foam, and we'll just do an experiment to see how well it works. And the outcome is we'll have a model of an almost ready to fly aircraft that a lot of people have that literally has a different color scheme. There are a range of the heat shrink coverings out there that you could use on these models. This is Hangar 9 Ultra Coat. I got it on Amazon. There's a variety of places you can get it, Horizon Hobby, Amazon, etc. There's 2 types of these iron-on coverings. One is a fairly heavy-duty covering, MonoKote, the Ultra Coat, that's good for larger size models. You don't want to use this type of covering on a smaller foam model because it's heavy and it uses a lot of heat. 2 that would be suitable, this is another Hangar 9 product called Ultra Coat Park Light. Anything you see light or lightweight is good for these smaller models. Less heat, and the covering is quite a bit lighter for the smaller models. So this is the Park Light. And another example from England is Solar Film So Light. Again, the light covering, lightweight, low heat. So this is an example of lightweight covering, and you can see that it has a clear plastic backing and the color in the front. This is a translucent one, which might work out well. I'm going to show you a technique for separating this from the back. Just take a piece of Scotch tape. We put it with a sticky side on the outside. We hold it at the very top of the clear, put this to the plastic, and you can very easily pull off the plastic covering of the back. So this is the side that goes onto the airplane, and you apply your iron to this side, and the heat will activate the covering. Take off the tape, obviously. Will activate the adhesive in the covering and shrink it to fit on. Now this is an example of a foam ready-to-fly aircraft, the E-flite Timber, that I did just this on with the coverings, again with the Ultra Coat covering for the larger models. This had the vinyl decals on there. I just pulled them off. It was no problem. The foam is all white foam, and notice that I used the red covering for the fuselage, but I left details of white just as part of the color trim scheme of the aircraft. So all this red is the iron-on MonoKote, left the plastic landing gear struts white, yellow for the wing, and just worked around lights, decals that I got from other models just for a little decorative effect. Used the MonoKote trim for the lightning bolt, kept the white on the front, and overall I think it's a pleasing color presentation for the model. You can see the registration here, just for a little bit of work with the covering. To help find a color scheme that will be suitable to your model, I just do a Google search for aircraft paint schemes, whatever fits your thing. I go to images and you'll see a bunch of pictures of airplanes that you can take a look at to give you some inspiration or ideas for how you're going to cover your particular model. I like the Zlin aircraft up here. Control Shift 4 on the Mac gives me a screen capture so I can make a JPEG of that image on my computer. Take a closer look at that. We'll close down the search window, bring in that JPEG screen capture, and we'll simply print it so we have some ideas of what we're going to use just for ideas for our aircraft color scheme. We can print this out on paper. And here's a closer look at that. Again, you can see the white from the foam, some color, some trim, just some ideas on how to apply it. So we've taken off some covering from one wingtip. You can see I did some dings on the wingtip. It was just a little bit tricky to get off. The key is a very sharp X-acto blade to get underneath the coverings. So a little bit of work later, all the coverings are off. This is the model with all the little vinyl coverings off. And we take a look at the underneath. There are no coverings there to begin with. We can see the carbon rod spar, the open battery bay that will keep open, and then the tail. Just be careful of control surfaces if you cover back in the tail section.
Okay, so here we are. Let's give a progress update on how we're doing with the Radian. I've used the yellow light coat to cover the top of the wings. I'm going to leave the bottom of the wings white. I'm going to put a red stripe here for orientation. I'm weighing the model as we go along. A scale is very important. You get it at Amazon if you build these smaller models. It's gained 1/10 of an ounce from the covering, but it feels like it's gaining some weight. So to keep the center balance correct, I'm not going to put any covering on the back. I'm going to test fly it first to see how that goes. I put some red stripes here just for decoration and also some striping along the nose. This is a good thing to do when you have a white model, which many of the foam models are. You can very easily add colors, use the white color of the foam to effect. It can come out fairly nice. So this is where we are right now, and just add a little bit to the bottom and give it a test flight to see how it works. So the test flight went very well. There was a little bit of wind. I deliberately wanted to come out here in the wind to see how it handled the turbulence. Remember, this model has AS3X, automatic stabilization 3 axes, and you'll see the control surfaces jitter a little bit. It tries to smooth out the bumps from the air when it's flying, and it worked very well. There's a little bit of turbulence among these buildings. It's a fairly tight flying area. It was a very positive feel, but the added weight, the 1/10 of an ounce of the covering, was minimal. I like the colored layout. I think it's an attractive model, and I think this covering, you come up with a different model. We're back from our first flight with a recovered Radian. I'm very happy. The model flew great. As I mentioned, out of the parking lot, there's a fair amount of wind. We've got some thunderstorms coming in now. The model handled the turbulence very well with the AS3X built-in stabilization. That's a computer function on the receiver with the Horizon Hobby folks, E-flite, that provides automatic short reactions to the control surfaces to make a smaller model feel the bumps and just smooth out through control deflection, make it seem like a smoother flight in the rough air, and it worked fine. It was the first time I'd flown a small model like this in the rough air, so very happy with that. I think the color scheme is nice. I have the yellow wings, the red stripes here with the MonoKote. I put another stripe on the front and on the back. I was concerned about weight, and what was happening was I have a small digital scale. It started off at 1.3 ounces. I added 1/10 of an ounce to the weight with the covering. The problem was, as I was building it, it just felt heavier. And what I realize now is the weight of the covering on the wings extended out, it was just making it feel a little bit heavier due to the distribution of lightweight covering on the wings. So the first test flight, I elected not to cover the bottom, just to go with some striping on the fuselage. It worked fine. There's plenty of power. I flew at about a half throttle. Could it take more covering weight? Absolutely. As part of your understanding when you're doing test flights and modifying these airplanes, what I would do if I wanted to cover the whole airplane is I would take some washers, just a couple washers of weight, and tape them right at the center of gravity here, just see how it flew with that extra weight, so I would know that the model could handle that extra weight, maybe 1 washer, 2 washers, 3 washers. That will give you assurance that the weight is not an issue. Now the thing you've got to keep in mind when you apply the covering is you're applying heat to foam. This is pretty tough foam, and the foam didn't seem to be affected by the heat too much. I used a normal covering iron to put on the covering. This has a temperature setting on it. I used about 220 degrees. That seemed to be plenty of heat to adhere the covering to the foam, but it did not do any damage to the foam. The other thing to keep in mind, when you add covering to any surface, you'll heat up the outside. That'll activate the adhesive on the inside to make it adhere to, in this case, the foam. You normally like to have an escape route for that heated air because it will cause bubbles underneath the covering. There's no place for it to go with the foam. What you have to do is take an X-acto knife and occasionally just puncture those bubbles, cover them back over with a heat gun to have it go down. Because the heat cannot escape from the back because the foam is there, a heat gun just doesn't work on something like that. You'll have to shrink the covering with the electric iron. So one very important thing with these lightweight coverings is a sharp razor blade. This is the X-acto knife with a number 11 blade. We're all familiar with that. These blades dull quickly. If they're dull and you're cutting this very thin plastic covering, it'll tear. I literally buy a pack of 100 blades. I just swap them out when I need a new blade. It's a good thing to do. And so those are my thoughts. The model flew well. You can take a foam model and apply covering to it. There were no hinges to worry about when I removed the covering. Everything worked out fine. So I think a good experiment, something to try to make your model look a little bit different. And this worked out just fine. Good luck with your modification efforts.